Thanks, John Carter, and thanks for having us on your Press Box show. This is something that Craig and I have done for several years now. We do a little preseason on what we expect the Mariners to do this year, and it's been kind of fun. So we're going to start out first. Craig, let's talk about the Mariners' schedule this year.
Well, I think, Jerry, the first thing I'll mention is that, can you believe this will be the 18th year on CTV?
No, I never would believe that.
I know one thing. We both had black hair back then, so I know that for sure. I mean, there was one thing to, but yeah, 18 years, so it's been a pleasure doing it. This year we're going to start off basically the same as last year, other than we're coming home for the first game at East China Stadium, playing the Algonac Muskrats.
One we lost last year, 1918, kind of surprised us, but Algonac had a great year, and let's face it, Marine City had pretty much a glorified junior varsity team, and I thought the coaches, I told Coach Ron Glodich that I thought that was his best season of coaching because of what he had. He had young kids, talent, but young kids.
The amount of kids coming back and kids learning new positions, it was definitely, especially you notice that halfway, three-quarters of the way through the season, what they were doing with what kids, and it was pretty impressive that way.
That's right.
You look at what they did. I think the defining one was really the game that they clinched a playoff spot down in Warren, playing a Division II team, Cousino team that was big and strong, and
yeah, that was one that let's face it, we have to probably win in order to get into the playoffs. We don't know that, but
right.
Yeah, Marine City took it to them.
Yeah, pretty heavily. So yeah, we start off at home against Algonac, and then
that's a Thursday.
That's a Thursday night. August 25th will be the start. Then we'll go on the road the following week
on Thursday,
on September 1st. So that'll be the holiday weekend at Port Huron Northern. So, and it's always fun to have a game at Memorial Stadium because that's a pretty close atmosphere with the stands being right behind the benches. Neat place to play.
It is, and fans are going to say, "Hey, wait a minute. How come we were at Memorial last year? We were at Viking Stadium last year. Why are we there again?"
It's that reset of the way that they're playing things. So you start off on your new scenario of playing the home away and then home the next year. So it's just the way it is. Week 3, interesting matchup. Nobody knows what to expect, but we got Loyola High School, which is a Detroit Catholic League team.
A perennial
powerhouse.
Yeah, state champions.
Yep. Very small school. They're a Division 6 school, I believe. Possible 7. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they've been in the finals, I believe, the last 3 years. Lost it the first time to Ishpeming, lost it the second time to Ishpeming, I believe, and won it the third time. So yeah, they're loaded.
Yeah, always. They're always loaded.
So that should be an interesting game. That's week 3. Then week 4, we go on the road to, as we talked about, to Marysville. The Loyola game will be our first Friday night on the 9th. Then they'll all be Fridays from there at Marysville. Week 5 will be at East China Stadium against the Madison team, and they're typically a pretty good Division 5 team, of which we are in Division 5. The following weekend, September 30th, you call it a home game, but St. Clair will be the home team, will be the visiting team at East China Stadium. The following week, October 7th, will be at Warren Woods Tower on a Friday. Week after that will be week 8, be at Lakeshore High School. And then come home and finish off the season against a tough Grosse Pointe North, at home.
That's a tough schedule. Very tough schedule.
When you look at it, we're playing the first game, like we talked, of Division 6 or 7, but they're a powerhouse. We'll be about 520 students somewhere in that vicinity in Division 5. Then we're going to play a Division 2 team in Port Huron Northern, a Division 4 team in Marysville, Division 5 team Madison, St. Clair's Division 3, Warren Woods Towers Division 3, Lakeshore's Division 3, and Grosse Pointe North is probably Division 2.
We didn't say what Algonac is. I don't know if they'll probably
be the same as us, 5.
5 or 4.
They were 4 last year.
I'm thinking they might be 4.
They might be 4, depending on the break off.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at our returning players, we've got a pretty good nucleus coming back. looking at the offense and defense, there's certainly a fair amount of skilled players coming back. The backfield seems to be a solid, returning letterman. We don't know the starters, so we're 2 weeks before the season, so we're not here to predict starters or talk about who a starter will be.
Right.
But we know that based upon what we had last year, a lot of the players that saw a lot of time last year, Cole Sobel, Ryan Alexander, Dawson Haney, on offense, MJ Frank, those will be the four nucleus as the backfield. We don't know who the starters and who the plug and play will be.
That's right. And we got our kicker back. Jensen Houston was only a junior. At one time during the season, there was 8 sophomores up that were playing. That one got sent back down just because they needed people on the junior varsity, and he wasn't going to play as much as the others on the varsity. So he was sent back down, but still a good player. But 8 of them. Yeah. That's unbelievable.
That's like you said. That's like a JV team.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Dawson Haney, but Justin Headley, that linebacker. That's unbelievable. Logan Johnson.
Yeah.
Got a lot of playing time. Mike DeSnyder, Will Petsalis started in that secondary. Logan Brinley, defensive lineman. Alex Kelly started in that secondary at times. You mentioned Cole Sobel, Dustin Wiseman, defensive back, tight end. It goes on and on. Then you mentioned the juniors. Ryan Alexander, Jacob Swing, Luke Ames, MJ Frank, Andrew Steinmetz has been there. Yeah, he's been there for a couple of years now. Mike Westrick, Tom Kaminsky. It's just, the list goes on and on and on.
Yep. Yeah, you mentioned Westrick, Kaminsky, Steinmetz on the line. You got Logan Brinley on the line. Justin Headley was a sophomore last year. So, you got a bunch of returning players. And, as always, we're confident that the coaches will put them in the right position, and they'll be successful.
Well, there were, 7 or 8 underclassmen that started on defense last year, and 6 or 7 that started on offense.
Right.
They're all returning.
Yep.
They should be better. We know that the coaches get the most out of everybody. I think the Mariners have something to prove against the Muskrats this year when it opens. That should just be an electric stadium on the 25th of August.
Yeah. I think when you look at that game, there's no doubt Algonac won the game, so you don't take that away from them. But I think that the Mariner fans and players and coaches felt like we gave it to them. Now, I say that from the aspect that, we gave them an extra point or two. I believe there was a touchdown called back. There were, and again, for penalties, and that is part of the game. But I think, if anything, the Mariners were mad at themselves.
And I think there's a little misunderstanding between the coaching staff and the players about injuries. If you remember, Mariners were going down every other play. There was an injured player, and it's like, what's going on? Well, then I understand that they had been told, don't stay out there hurt. If you're hurt, don't try to, stick it out.
Right.
Let's get somebody else in there. Well, they kind of misunderstood that, and they're going down every other play. And it was like, wow, what's going on here? The Mariners are usually the toughest team on the field, and it looked like they weren't.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting this year to see what Algonac's going to be good. They have a good program going now.
Yep.
So this should be a good game.
They've got the confidence now after beating us last year that they're going to walk in saying, hey, we're not the underdog now.
Yeah, that's right. But I think they are.
I beg to differ on that one, right?
Yeah.
I looked at a couple things. You know me as a stats type of guy. So the best football records in the state of Michigan for the past 5 years, 10 through 15.
This is
through the state of Michigan.
Every team, regardless of division. Okay.
Size. Number 1 is Ithaca with 83-1. There's nothing to argue there. Ithaca, I believe, has won 6 state championships, maybe. They've lost 1 game in the last 5 years, so that means they've won 5 automatically, and I think they've won 6.
I think that they are on their second coach too in that time. I think the son of the head coach has taken over there, and he just keeps it rolling.
Yeah. Ishpeming's number 2 with 73-5. New Lothrop, who's a very successful team. I know the coach there. He's a friend of my nephew Kyle's.
Okay.
He comes out of that Chesaning area, Montrose. He comes out of Montrose. They're 66-6, number 3. Number 4 team we know well, Zeeland West. We've played them before. They're 69-8 in 5 years. And of course, number 5, a team we will meet in week 3 will be the Detroit Loyola Bulldogs at 69-8.
Yeah, they're tough.
Next, another Detroit team, Detroit Cast Tech. The Technicians are 70-11. Number 7 would be St. Ignace Saints are 63-10. Number 8, a team that you see quite often in the quarters, semis, and finals, DeWitt. The Panthers are 62-11. And then next up at number 9, our hometown Mariners.
Number 9 in the state.
Yep.
In the last 5 years, that's good. That's something.
Regardless of divisions. So out of how many high schools, that would be several hundred.
So you get something to be proud of there.
Yeah, 16-11. Number 10 is Menominee at 65-12. So that's a pretty...
It's interesting that many of the teams come from either the Upper Peninsula or near the tip of the mitt, if you will, northern teams. And you just wonder if that's strength of schedule. Does that have anything to do with it? Or I doubt it. They're good teams.
Oh, yeah.
They come down and they make a good showing in the state championship games whenever they're there.
Regardless. Yeah, I think we've got teams in just about any division here. Ithaca's like a 6. New Lothrop is a 7, I believe. Zeeland's a 2. Loyola, I think, like I said, is 6 or 7. Cast Tech, I think, is 1, aren't they? I believe. Cast
Yeah,
Tech.
they are definitely 1. And Zeeland West had moved up. They were like 3 for a while, but I think they're back down to 4.
Okay. DeWitt's, I believe, 2. So a good cross-section of teams there covering pretty much every gamut there. What else do we want to talk about?
Well, we talked about the sophomores coming back. Like we said, we're going to have basically the entire backfield from a year ago, plus whatever you have coming up from the junior varsity. And I understand the freshman year is really good. They've got some players that can play football. I mentioned that I heard that the sophomores off that line coming up were good, so they're going to be plugged in spots. Plus, a lot of the juniors got playing time last year, a lot of playing time, so they'll be fighting for positions. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the coaching staff.
Yep.
You mentioned Matt Pollock. You told me just before we started that he won't be returning.
Yeah, Matt decided he wanted to take at least a year off. He wants to watch the kids play college ball. Kevin, his stepson, plays college ball at Trine University.
Okay.
So a little bit too much going on to be able to do that. So he's taking a year off at least. Tony Scarcelli was there last year, but he'll be back. And I think,
Probably in a bigger role.
Yeah.
What did they call him? They called him I think he can do it. They called him the defensive quality control man. That's his title.
Right.
And Matt, of course, was the defensive coordinator.
Yep. Other than that, the only other change is Dave Frent was off for a year, and Dave is back. Dave is the defensive coordinator. Dave's been with him. Gosh, it's one of those things where you think it's just a few years. It's probably been 8 or 10 now, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
It's been a while, I know that.
So Dave's back. Obviously, Coach Glodich, the head coach, Darren Letson, Andy Scheel, Gary Griffin on special teams and receiver coach, Dave Oshlin doing the defensive line. Strength and conditioning, John Kretschmar is doing that for his second year.
And his son just graduated.
Yeah.
He's one of the captains, along with Dennis Fitzsimmons that Craig mentioned. And Max is going to be missed. Matt Badke, Robert Mazzone, Zach Coverdale, Ian Francis. They'll all be missed.
Oh, yeah. Other than that, it's like we talk about this time of year, and we always are hopeful and looking for good things because that's just the way that we're used to it. We're spoiled.
Yeah, we are. We are. I think that I've told Bob Skavich this. I've told Tony this. I've told Ron this. I'm not telling them anything, but I tell them anyway that they win a lot of times simply because they're Marine City.
Right, and they're prepared, and it's just expected.
But they expect to win, and teams that they're playing say, I don't know, we're playing Marine City. Even though they might have more talent, we're playing Marine City. They're always tough. And they've won by strength of just being Marine City.
Well, and being in the game positions that they've been over the years. The one, when you said that came right to my mind with the Clawson game of about 3 years ago down in Clawson. It was like a big-time boxing match. One punch one punch the other. One would score, the other would score.
It's like 50-something.
Oh, yeah. And I was on the sidelines because it was down in Clawson. I remember Bob Scharnwerber's on the sidelines as the trainer. And his eyes were about, as big as saucers, thinking, oh boy, what do we got going here? I think we're down by 10, maybe 14. And I said to him, Bob, I think if we can keep this to a less than 2 score being down, I think we'll be fine. I just have that feeling. And we ended up coming back in that game. And if you're down by 2 scores or less, all that you really have to do is, it sounds easier, but if you score once, you mean to make one stop, and then you're back to possibly even ground.
Right.
You get down 17 to 20 points, then it gets to be pretty difficult to come back.
I agree.
But that game there was just the perfect scenario of, we got this, let's be calm, let's just come out and do what we're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Because as watching a game, it's like fans in the stands get all excited and they may say negative things or this or that, but it's like you got 16, 17, 18-year-old kids in these positions. They will make mistakes. They can make mistakes.
You forget that they are that young because they've got the uniforms on, the helmets. You can't see their faces.
Right.
They're babies.
Yeah. And the other thing is that, I look at specifically the defensive back position. A lot of times we're young in those positions at times. And I say, you look at it and you go, put any human being in that position, and the room for error is so minimal at that point. You might be perfectly with that guy, and you might have your hand in his face, but the ball gets tipped, he gets a second catch. It wasn't a bad position.
They used to say, I assume they still do, that the best athletes on the field are the defensive backs. They have to be.
Yeah.
Especially at the college and the professional levels, they're the best athletes on the field.
Yeah. Yeah. So the fan wants to get down on the player that he gets beat on a long play. The difference between making that play and not is sometimes inches or millimeters.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Absolutely.
So
and maybe it was blown coverage by somebody else too. Sometimes the guy that is closest was not supposed to be there. He backed his buddy up, so, because it was blown coverage. It's hard today.
Yeah. Well, and then getting back to that same old thing, I think the Mariners over the last, say, 15, 20 years have been in so many positions that the coaches don't get too down or excited about it. They know that, I've literally heard Tony on the sideline say, hey guys, that was my fault. You guys were in the wrong setup. Mm-hmm. My fault. Don't worry about it. Let's go on and play the next play.
Right.
And that's the big thing I do notice is that the players are taught that it's all about this one play. It's all about one play. Whatever happened last play, forget about it.
And do your job.
Do your job.
Do your job. Don't try to do somebody else's, but you still help each other out a little bit.
Right.
All right. Last night when I was thinking about what we were going to just talk about and everything, I thought, what is the best game I've ever seen the Mariners play? And I thought about, we've had some where it was just a shootout. Just, you mentioned the Clawson game. We've had some where you just couldn't score. It was a defensive battle. And then I keep going back to that Flint Powers game in 2007. Yep. We're down 28-0, 28-7 at halftime. We scored
called that game.
We did. It was at home. We scored just before halftime to make it 28-7. Kids go in the locker room. They got their heads down a little bit. From what I understand, I wasn't there, but Brendan Kay was the quarterback and says, hey, we can come back. You just give me time to throw, and we're going to come back and win this. Well, the Mariners come out. Not only did they give him time to throw, but the defense did a great job on their star running back, remember? Yeah. And Mariners score.
Ryan Lark.
That's it.
How do you remember that?
I don't know. I never would have, but that's it. But they score, 31 straight points. So it ended up being 38 straight points, counting the touchdown just before the half. Win the game 38-28, and that's in a playoff game.
Right.
I mean, it was like the tale of 2 games.
If you went to a betting man and put money down, I don't know how many people would have put money on Rain City.
No. I don't either.
You're right. I mean,
But I mean, it wasn't just the offense that did a great job. The defense shut them down. Just play after play after play. Got a couple of turnovers, take it in, score right away. Next thing you know, we're up 38-28. They can't move the ball.
Right.
But that has to be the highlight of the games that we've done, and probably before we started.
Yeah.
Or before I started anyway.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was a special game that, and I can remember calling that game. I can remember coming out at the half and going, we have to be positive. We have to, because sometimes it's hard. But, man, that was something special. Yeah.
It was. Well, I think we've covered just about everything that we usually covered, haven't we?
Yeah.
I think so. So, once again, I want to thank John Carter for allowing us to be on his Press Box show, and remind everybody that this year, John Carter is going to be in the Press Box with Bob Wright.
Bob Wheeler?
Or Bob Wheeler, Bob Wright. Gee whiz, that's a name from the past. That was Bob Wheeler. I had the right letter.
Good to thank our camera guy here today.
Yes.
Doing overtime is Saturday.
Yeah, that's right. Go ahead.
So thank you for showing up and doing your job on a Saturday that we don't expect it to be done.
It's Jared Forbes, like the magazine.
Yes.
Like the magazine, Jared Forbes.
So thank you for showing up on a Saturday. It's an exciting time of year if you're a Mariner football fan, and we're anticipating to keep it rolling. What are we, 18 or 19 straight years in the playoffs?
Yes, that's at least that many. I don't know exactly what it is. It's a long time.
We've never had a season in our 18 years that we haven't.
Unreal.
Pretty special.
Unreal.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks again to John Carter. John, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
Thanks for having me. It's always exciting to talk about football any time of the year, but it certainly is. The season's about ready to get going.
Absolutely correct. That's one of the reasons we really wanted to have you on. So tell us a little bit about what your background in coaching is. I know you've been in St. Clair now for a number of years, but just give us an idea where you came from and how you developed into a coach.
Actually, I started coaching in 1990 here at St. Clair. I was in college at the time, and one of my former coaches from high school became the head coach, and he was looking for a freshman coach to help. And so I started assisting as a freshman assistant while I was still in college, making a long trip back and forth from Ypsilanti every day. And then so I realized that for sure I knew I wanted to be a coach. That really made me solidified my thoughts. So I hustled back the next couple of years, took the next 2 years off so I could get my schooling done. And I came back again in '93 at St. Clair, from '93 to '96, I believe. And then I went to Marine City after that. I was at Marine City until 2003 as a volunteer assistant. Actually, for one year I was a JV, a paid coach, and I was assistant coach at Marine City, working with primarily defensive backs during my tenure. Then a position opened up at Southlake High School in St. Clair Shores. I took that head job for one season, and then the job back here at St. Clair opened up, and I've been here ever since 2005.
And some pretty good success over the last couple of years as well.
Well, we've had some pretty good players, and we've had, and I think anybody in any organization, whether it's family or it's a business or a athletic team, knows it's not a one-man show. There's a whole lot of things that go into any success that you have.
Well, that's a good segue into one of the questions I wanted to ask. Probably more so than any other sport, football's a program from middle school all the way up into high school. Tell us a little bit about how you set up your football program. Do you have the same philosophy? You want to run the same plays on offense, the same kind of defenses all the way through those? How do you work with the other coaches, those sorts of things?
Well, we've been very fortunate that, first of all, the administrations at the various levels, from the people that run our junior football program to our middle school and certainly our high school, all the administration from the volunteer administration for junior football to the principals and ADs at the various schools, they're on board with the idea of everybody trying to do the same thing. And so, and all the coaches have been outstanding and willing to do that because they know not only does it give success down the road, but it gives some individual success for the kids because they have some familiarity with the expectations. Right. It also helps you with the coaches because now the coaches can coach the coaches. And so if new guys are coming in or a new system comes in, they got to learn from scratch unless they're experienced coaches. But oftentimes you're getting guys that are just starting their coaching pedigree, so it allows a lot of coaches to be able to mentor them and teach them our offense, defense, teach techniques. Even though they change over time, the basics are always been pretty similar. And so we've been very fortunate with that. And then after the administration, I mean, our coaches, like as I said, buy into the concept. Okay. And we didn't invent that. I mean, I think in this area, it became first popular in the 60s and 70s when Marysville had great success, and everybody run the same thing when other schools in the area weren't doing that. So that became more of a focus. And so we mimic that like most people.
Yep.
And then, we've had the kids, they understand how important it is and we don't force kids, they don't always have to be the same position all the way through because they're athletes and we want to develop them as football players and as athletes. So it's not that the kid has to be an offensive guard from the time he's in 4th grade because sometimes, well, for instance, Darian Rutledge is now playing at Alma College. He played fullback in junior football.
Okay.
But he understood the concepts of our offense and concepts of what we try to do defensively and our philosophy, and he was able to move where he was probably physically more in tune to a lineman, and easily made that transition because of it.
Okay. Probably wouldn't have been very much fun to try to tackle as a 7th grader, though.
I don't think so. Actually, my son, he played junior football when they had another very large fullback, and he literally had cleat marks on his leg for 2 weeks. So that's kind of painful for the young kids, yes.
So one of the, I think, critical aspects of a football program is that off-season conditioning. Tell us a little bit about what you try to accomplish in your off-season. And then, in particular, I'm interested in the concept of sweep the shed, which you've really kind of promoted here the last couple of times. So let us know what that is.
Well, yeah, sure. First of all, our off-season program starts first and foremost with 3-sport athletes.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's a good philosophy we have at our school, and that's 100% what we believe in. Before I was coaching here, even, when I was at Marine City, we had a kid that wound up being an all-state hurdler and hurdled in college. And one of the reasons I believe he became a good hurdler is because he played football and basketball that helped him with his footwork and the rhythm of running, which he was not natural at. And it helped him down the road.
Yep.
And so playing other sports, number one, I think it helps train you physiologically. There's so much research now that shows how dangerous playing one sport year-round is. I just read a study the other day. I'm sorry if I'm getting off the topic a little bit.
This is good.
But I just read a study the other day that 70% of kids that play organized sports stop playing by the time they're 13. If they play youth organized sports, 70% no longer play any sport by the time they're 13. Part of it's because of burnout.
Yeah.
Part of it is from pressure, whether it's parents, coaches, or themselves, because now they have these ideas that they have to be an NBA, whether it's an NFL, NBA, or MLB player. We have a lot of injuries now of overusage from elbows. We have a lot of Tommy John surgeries for 12 to 15-year-olds. There was no such thing for so long except for guys that have been in the major leagues for 10 years. Now it's kids that are teenagers.
Yeah.
Kids with injuries from the knees, from always nonstop kicking, et cetera, as opposed to playing multiple sports because it trains the entire body, not just a specific skill. The burnout is crazy.
Yeah.
How many kids get burned out over time. So we really focus on that. And I guess probably the number one reason is because when you're in high school, you ought to have fun. Obviously school comes first,
right?
But with all the extracurriculars that are available, we want them to do as many possible. We have some kids that are involved in band and also football, and some people have a hard time with that. It causes a little problem for us, but why would I tell a kid he can't go play the tuba? He'll never get to do it again.
Yes, exactly.
So that's the first part of our off-season program is get involved with other sports. And on top of all those things, being competitive is a learned skill, and being coached is a learned skill, and being coached by different styles of coaches with different demands, and putting yourself in adverse situations. You can go run on a track or lift weights all you want, but nothing it compares to now you got to hit a big free throw in the fourth quarter.
Right.
And so that's a big part of our off-season program. Now we still expect and want our kids to lift. And if you watch any athlete at a high level, they're all. LeBron James is not a skinny Jamal Wilkes.
Right.
Mid-70s basketball player now.
I remember him.
Yeah. Tiger Woods was a 300. These guys are lifters now. They understand how important it is for all sports. So we certainly expect kids to still lift. We come in at 6:10. We start our morning weights through the winter and through the spring. And we did that because some kids, we want them to play other sports. We had at one point kids say, well, I want to lift, I'm not going to play such and such. Well, we'll lift in the morning. Now you don't have that excuse.
Yep.
So we do that like most people, and we do speed training and agility training and change of direction stuff throughout the whole summer. Our summertime is more ground-based, so we're doing most things on the ground. We
Right.
do a lot of, throwing car tires in the air and that kind of stuff in the summer because it works out explosiveness and more powerful stuff.
So tell us about Sweep the Shed. And let me just preface it. A very good article in the Port Huron paper a couple of weeks ago, I think. And one of the unique aspects of it, you had other athletes from other sports involved in this. So tell us a little bit about that and how did it originate?
Sure. Well, the thing you're referring to, the other athletes, that's our Big Ten workouts. That's the last 2 weeks. Yep, the last 2 weeks of our summer workout program. We get away from weights entirely, and we just want to train kids our cardiovascularly and their legs running, because most of the injuries that kids have early in the season, which linger all year, is because they're out of shape.
Yes.
And so we extend that to all the different programs in all of our other fall sports programs.
Okay.
Not all of them don't use it because they like what they're doing, or they're in the pool and they'd rather be in the water than the ground. But for everybody, because it's for our community. You know, this is our school, this is our community. It's not just our team.
Yeah.
Now, closely tied to that is the idea that we have of Sweep the Shed. And I didn't invent this. I read this a little while ago. Actually, Coach Bacon, who used to coach defensive tackles for us, did a great job. His job now doesn't allow him to do it. But he pointed me towards this article. There's a rugby team in, I believe, Australia called the All Blacks. And they are the winningest professional franchise in all sports.
Right.
San Antonio Spurs, 60% winning percentage, number one in the NBA. The Yankees are about 60%. Cowboys and I think, who was it?
Packers
at 59%. Mm-hmm. That's the cream of the crop. And this All Blacks rugby team is at 70%, 700. All the way through, and it's a 100-year-old program. It's not like they've been around for 3 years.
Right.
And in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were having the same problem everybody else. They went through 7 years of losing records. And they looked at it and said the big problem they had was there's no humility. In today's climate, when it's all about give me a new selfie, climate about what are my stats, am I getting my scholarship, and everybody, all of a sudden, they also had that, Pat Riley used to talk about the disease of me.
Right.
And they were infected with the disease of me. And so they put their heads together and they said the problem, they just know humility. The idea meaning, it doesn't mean you think less of yourself, it just means you think of yourself less as in less often. And so they came up with this concept that to try to teach them humility, literally after all their games, whether it's road or home, everybody grabs a broom and everybody in that team sweeps that locker room, spit shine, because again, it's not about me, it's about we, and we leave things better when we found them. Again, the idea of humility. And we really felt that was one of our issues last year. I thought we had more talent than we showed as far as our record showed. That starts with me. I didn't do a good enough job with our kids of teaching them to play for each other. So we thought that was real important for us to get back to realize and have some humility, meaning care about the other people more than ourselves. And that's really where it came from.
That's great. That's great. So interesting then, talking about the 2016 team, one of the things is you are really have a good group of skill players, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, et cetera, but you lost a lot of your offensive line, defensive line to graduation, as always happens in high school.
You better lose somebody.
Yeah, got to lose somebody. So tell us a little bit about, from a coach's perspective, maybe what's more difficult to replace, and then how do you actually go about building a line kind of from scratch in order to be ready for your first game?
Well, I think first of all, it depends on who you ask as far as which is more difficult.
Line coach versus quarterback coach?
Chad Miller is our backfield coach, our offensive coordinator, outstanding coach. He'd probably say it's harder to have new backs. I coach the offensive line, and so I think it's pretty tough. So I don't know if one's more difficult than the other, but they create different types of challenges.
All right.
Both are tremendously challenging mentally because in the backfield position, particularly quarterback, the quarterback has to know everything. He has to really understand the blocking schemes, the protection schemes, what the receivers are running or not running, the backfield action. So he's got a lot to digest. But for the offensive line, different mental challenge because they got to be able to pick up blitzes when they don't see them coming. And so it's a very high level compared to junior high, or JV or freshman all of a sudden. So for them, it's the speed of the game and recognizing different fronts from, teams they'll change from one play to the next, from a 5 to a 4 to a 3-3 or a 3-5 to blitzing to sitting back. So that's challenges mentally for the lineman as well. So I think that's mentally pretty even. Physically, again, it's different. The offensive lineman, because we're young, physically we're a year behind because we got juniors instead of seniors. They haven't got another year of lifting. So I think they're both great challenges, but the reality is it's about development anyway.
Yeah.
We're trying to develop all the kids, whether it's a starter or a kid that's maybe a backup, or whether it's a lineman or a receiver. I mean, we're trying to develop all kids.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your kind of philosophy as a coach. You're primarily, you as you mentioned, coordinate the defense. But so what do you look for in defense? Are you a kind of a bend, not break, or do you want to put pressure on your offense? How do you go about coaching your defense?
First of all, you have to look at our personnel.
Sure.
I mean, we've changed our scheme, not our philosophy, but our scheme has changed in the last few years because of the personnel that was coming through our pipeline. So that has to change a little bit. But our overall philosophy, number one, is we have to be disciplined and we have to be fundamentally sound. We've kind of pounded already this year how important defense is about alignment. That's the first and number one rule of defense is got to line up right. I don't care how aggressive you are, how fast you are, and how well you hit. If you're in the wrong spot, uncovered, or just a defensive lineman being a half a man in the wrong spot, you create a natural gap for the offense to exploit. So number one is about alignment on defense. But we believe very much in being sound defensively. We're going to have our gaps covered. We want to be very aggressive on our reads, but we're going to read first.
Okay.
I don't believe in the concept of bend don't break. I mean, we don't want to say let's surrender and stop them later. But the reality is very few teams at any level. If you look at even the NFL, the scoring percentage when they take the ball over at the 20 versus on the 50, tremendous difference. Because at some point over 80-yard drive, oftentimes, whether it's a penalty, a missed assignment, or a turnover, whatever it is.
Make a mistake.
You make a mistake. So it's hard for a lot of teams to get 12, 14-play drives. I want to make them do it. And we're going to the philosophy has not changed for us, and it's still at almost any level, regardless of how much spread offense come in vogue, is you got to stop the run.
Yep.
Even spread teams would love to spread you out and give the ball to the running back. So we have to stop the run. Now there's sometimes a team we may say, okay, we got to focus more on the pass, but we're going to stop the run. That's our number one goal.
Yeah. So on the offensive side, then, tell us a little bit about your formations and what you're trying to do on your offense. What should your offense be good at?
Okay. Well, number one, we with our formations, we're trying to get angles, which is what most teams. I shouldn't say most teams, but a lot of teams that are not necessarily going to year in and year out produce Division I talent, which we don't have. We got great kids, and I love them. But we don't get
not many go to play for Michigan State or Michigan.
We don't get many in the code. We had one to go to Division II so far.
Right.
We're Division III kids, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Most kids, programs this area are. So we have to rely on blocking angles and double teams and using our, we're option-based offense, so our quarterback has to read and take advantage of what the defense does based on their movements. So that philosophy does not change. We have to count on. We're going to have a set type of talent every year. I have no control if the guy across from us is bigger, faster, stronger. So we better have good blocking angles on our assignments, double teams when necessary, and use our brains.
Yeah. One of the things I frankly have always admired about the way you've gone about things is you play a lot of kids.
Yes.
And I think it seems to me deliberate, but whether it's on defense, offense, you don't have a lot of guys going both ways, and you also play a lot of kids on special teams. Tell me about how that evolved here, especially with a Class B school where, frankly, a lot of them don't do that.
How it evolved early on in my coaching career, when I coached with Coach Bob Siskevich, who's a Hall of Fame coach, and I mean an outstanding man and coach. One thing I learned, one of the many things I learned, coaching with that staff, is when a kid plays one side of the ball, if he gets, that means he's getting double reps in individual time, group time, team time. He's getting a lot more reps every day. And so by the end of the year, you can take an average kid and make him good, a good kid and make him great. Now in the last few years, we've been in a probably, I wouldn't say unfortunate, but it's been a challenging situation because we don't have many coaches in our building that coach. Teachers. So we have to find gentlemen that are good coaches and willing, but their jobs change. And all of a sudden, like I said, Coach Bacon earlier, he can't coach now because of his job. So as a result, we have fewer coaches. And we went to Lowell High School a few years ago to find out how they do it with fewer coaches. And so we found a way to get us to get more coaches to work together at all three levels. But as a result, we can't divide practice the same way. So a defensive back is not just practicing defensive back all day. Now he has to do a little bit of both. It's created some depth for us, but we also lost some of those reps in practice. But number one, it's high school athletics. And we know at varsity we got to win. That's a big part of what we do, but that's not our focus. Our focus, our mantra since I've been here is do the right thing for the right reasons in the right way, which you got to remind yourself all the time because you are consumed with winning as a coach as your competitive side, but you got to remember what's the right thing to do. Are we doing the right thing? Are we doing it the right way? And are we doing it for the right reasons? And so whenever we can, we want to get kids on the field. And the one thing, it makes them hungry. The kids, it takes a kid, even with fewer reps, a kid knows, look, we call it special teams, special ops, kind of like a military type concept. But if you're on our Rangers team, wear that as a sense of pride, because I'll tell you, those military Rangers take pride in their job. And all of a sudden, you see a kid that maybe is not in what other people see as a starter. He's a starter in our eyes and our program's eyes, because number one, that unit is very important to our success. Number two, as a if you wind up being a kid that maybe gets on 3 or 4 special ops units, that's 20 plays a game. That's quite a bit.
Probably a third of the game, right?
Absolutely. So you can really get quite a few opportunities on the field, develop you as a player overall, and like I said, then as a result, when you play a kid 2 ways, and one kid gets hurt, you lost 2 positions. Yeah. Now we've had, we have. It's interesting you say that. By far our worst numbers we've ever had since I here, and there's a lot of different reasons for it. That's another story. But at this point, if we start today, we still only have two kids that would go, start on both sides of the ball.
All right.
So yeah, we're real happy about that. We still have a lot of guys that are playing, consider our low numbers.
Excellent. So let's kind of talk now about 2016 coming up. And I guess I would characterize 2015 difficult season, but really kind of showed quite a bit of improvement towards the end part of the season. So what do you see coming up for yourselves in 2016? You're back in the Gold Division, kind of our usual suspects of people, Marine City, Marysville, Port Huron Northern. What do you see coming up for 2016?
For us or from the opponent?
For you right now.
For us, number one, we always like to at least think that we're going to swarm the ball in defense. No matter what we're going to do, we're going to be aggressive and try to get 11 helmets to the ball. And because we have pretty good team speed, I don't know if we have burners, but we got a lot of team speed, quickness, we expect that to carry over.
Okay.
Offensively, our challenge this year, it's going to be a new challenge because, again, we've kind of pride ourselves, and we get this from other coaches. I think that usually our kids on the line of scrimmage get after it. We'll get off the ball and play, good grunt football, so-called. We got new grunts. So that's one thing is an unknown. But the flip side of that is, I think our backs are the best blocking backs we maybe ever had as a unit. So maybe they've taken up some of the grunt, pressure. So I guess that's what we look for. Is I always try to explain to people, even when we went to semis a couple years ago, I can't tell you which game. First of all, I've never gone into a contest in my life where I didn't think I was going to win. I don't care if I was playing pickup basketball against guys that was better than me. I've lost a lot. I'm not saying I always did, but I was expected to. And so for me to say what game we're going to win or lose, well, every week I expect I'm going to win.
Yep.
But the focus, the understanding that we have is when I talk to other people, like, how's our season? I expect you're going to see a team out there that is going to care about each other. They're going to work hard from the opening kickoff to the last whistle. We're going to be disciplined, improve discipline this year from last year. We were down a little bit in that area, and we're going to get after it.
Good.
And that's what I expect to see every week.
Good.
So let's do it. It'll be a good season. I'll be honest. It's going to be good as far as the development of young men, because that's first and foremost.
Right.
And our win-loss record will take care of itself if we do those things.
So you do have, and I'll quote Fred Shaw here, the best thing about a sophomore is they become juniors and eventually seniors. You got a quarterback, Colin Augusta, who was a sophomore last year, a little bit of growing pains, again, played much better latter part of the year. What are you looking for from him here as a junior at running your offense?
Well, not just him, but we have a lot of second-year players now, second-year starters that are still just juniors. We have a few other ones. Ian Jansen, and we have Ben Davidson. We have Noah Gabriel, who was a freshman last year. We got some 2-year starters that are still coming back after this year. So that's a great thing. I know people want to talk about Colin. That's great because he gets the glamour position, and that's the reality of football in today's world.
Credit and blame, right?
Absolutely, you're right. I mean, that's the flip side that people understand. He directly or indirectly hears when things aren't going as well, from his parents and the stands and friends. So sometimes he probably needs to get some of the the praise because he's getting the brunt of the blame. He's had an outstanding off season for us. He is going to, I think, take giant leaps forward from where he was even at the end of last year, both in his command of the offense. Our offense in some ways is simple, but in other ways terminology in that is not. And so, again, going to a new guy, Coach Miller, we tag a lot of things to change blocking assignments, and there's a lot of verbiage to catch. He commands it. Now he understands it. It's not second nature. It's second nature. Now it's not, all right, is he supposed to be here? Well, now it's all, ingrained in his head, which now allows him to just play football. And so I think you're going to see a guy that's having some fun playing football and leading our troops.
That's kind of the definition of the game slowing down, right, as you get more experience.
Absolutely.
Yes. So let's take that other side of that question. Who else is going to be pretty good, you think, in the Gold this year?
the gold. I mean, it's a tough.
Really?
It's a really tough league, and not only is it tough in the league, but the crossovers are a great challenge. But I think you're going to have always the usual suspects. I think Marine City and Marysville are always going to be very tough. I like to think we're going to be tough.
Yep.
Certainly, I think Northern's much improved. They got great numbers. I thought they showed some improvement last year, and they have a lot of guys coming back. The unknown is going to be someone like Lakeshore, who's just joining us this year. So that's not certain. I think Tower had a down year last year, but they've had some, traditionally they've had some pretty good teams. We've had some great dogfights in my 11 years prior to this year. So it's a dogfight. There's no gimmies on the schedule. There's no this is physically going to be a weaker week, rest and recovery week. We don't have those. And our crossovers, we have, I believe, 5 league champions from last year on our schedule this year. So it's not like, we had a bad season, so now, like the NFL, you're going to have, you got the other 3 and 6 teams. We replaced Grosse Pointe North in the blue with Warren Cousino that won the blue with them. And so you go down and, now we have Southlake, who just got Madison's best running back, and now they have, according to the experts out there, they got 2 Division I guys in the backfield. So it's not like, that we had a substandard year, it's an easy schedule. I think, at least on paper ahead of time, this is the toughest schedule we've ever had.
Wow.
So, but that's saying, again, that's a great chance for us. I mean, if that bothers you, you shouldn't be playing sports, and maybe you should just be paying attention to studies and going home and playing video games. I don't know, which I hope nobody does, but they do.
So you have Croslex now in almost like a week and a half only.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for the first game of the season? Obviously, there's no tape. You can't see them playing any games yet. You played them last year, so you have that. But how are you preparing for Croslex while still doing the overall preseason stuff that you have to do to get your team ready for the whole season?
Right. And I learned this a long time ago. Again, you better have an offense and defense designed to stop the big boys. Whoever the big boys are in your schedule, whether you're seeing at the state level, you're trying to stop Orchard Lake St. Mary's or East Grand Rapids. Now they're in Division III, we're a Division IV team now. Or the big guys in your league, who's been traditionally the best teams. Which means, because if you have a defense and offense that can stop the guys that are winning every week, then ought to carry over to the teams that aren't winning every week. Correct. If that makes sense. And again, I didn't come up with that. Again, I got that from Coach Siskevich. And so, that's the first thing. I think we have a sound offensive and defensive system that will have a success no matter who shows up. Now, with respect to Croslex, because everybody in the state knows game 1's important, you better win it. We've been working all off season for number 1 to get better and be a great team. Win game 1, win your rivals, playoffs, all those sorts of things. As coaches, behind the scenes, that's where you worry about the guys that are on your schedule. So, all summertime we're working on getting stronger, and we work on, you can work without footballs, you can work on your position, your stances, and all that kind of stuff, and even our preseason stuff right now at camp time. It's more generic. You're just working on your offense and your defense. You might throw a little wrinkle in there because you're going to see this formation in week 1. You're going to see this defense in that week, but they can change that also. But, for instance, the two guys have been with us for a few years now. Chad Miller, who is our offensive coordinator, and Ryan Zirkle, that's our special ops coordinator. They're watching film year round, and so am I. And I mean, to the tune. They're doing. We're doing probably 20 to 30 hours a week of football in January. I'm sure everybody else is doing the same. I shouldn't say that, but I prepare that they are.
Yeah.
And so our answers to what Croslex is doing, it comes more from us preparing. We got to prepare the kids to play football. We got to prepare us to play Croslex, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. That does make sense. So you mentioned earlier one of the things that I think is really I don't know if I call it a controversy, but a question surrounding football now. It's the whole concussion CTE thing. I was by a couple of your practices I mentioned earlier. I saw the kids wearing the protective helmets. First of all, tell me how the focus on that over the last couple of years has changed your coaching style, and if any, and how that's impacted you. And then talk a little bit specifically about the helmet covers and what they're intended to do.
Sure, absolutely. First of all, like anything that comes out, I think there's some positives and negatives. And so some of the positives came from the concerns of concussions and CTE, is that you do have to look at how you're teaching the game. You have to constantly make sure you're upgrading your equipment. The equipment we have now, even the most basic helmet, is better than it was 5 years ago. And that's the cheap helmet now is better than the expensive helmet 10 years ago.
Yes.
So I think we have better helmets. We have these things called Guardian caps, which are...
And a couple kids wore those last year, right?
Everybody wear them in practice.
Okay.
Everybody wears them in practice. And then kids that have had any history with concussions, or even if mom or dad or the kid themselves, if we see them as just be one of those missile-type kids that even though we teach technique, sometimes they throw caution in the wind, then they wear them during the games. Just to, just one more layer of protection. There's no such thing. People say the concussion helmet. There's no such thing as a concussion helmet. So I don't lie and say, oh, this kid's 30% more protected. There's no number to it.
Right.
We just know the science does show you could protect all from concussions if you just kept stacking pillows on top of your head. Okay, but you'd have a 12-foot high pillow. Okay, so in other words, the Guardian cap, we do know at least by adding a little bit more layer that it's going to give more, dissipate some of the energy across. And there's a lot of research recently that shows soft helmet cover also helps with that, and that's those Guardian caps do for us to give that soft helmet cover on top.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't realize it's just not getting hit in the head, it's using your head to hit has really been one of the problems.
Well, it's not just that, it's falling down. Right. A lot of things happen, and that's the negative side of this whole story, is because football has become our national pastime, which I like because I love football. I love all sports for the most part, but certainly football. Because it's the big boy in town kind of being the pastime, and it has greater numbers and it gets all the press on ESPN, people seem to think that football is the dangerous sport because we have the pads. We do hit. It's a physical game, which makes it a great game because it puts kids in a position in that sport as opposed to others where you have to withstand physical discomfort for the sacrifice of others, and that's a tough one.
Yep.
And it's something we're losing so much in society in today's world where it's constantly, what am I getting as opposed to what am I giving? Now we get kid to give of their physical comfort to discomfort for somebody else's success. That's a pretty good thing. And the research, which is inconclusive in some areas, but most of the data that I've seen, because as a coach and a dad, when those things come up, to be quite honest with you, I had to do some soul searching,
right.
And I got some pretty strong belief system, and I don't want to put a kid at risk of his livelihood of life, and same thing with my own sons.
Right.
And so I've done a lot of diligent research from talking directly to there's one of the experts at the University of Michigan who's worked with the Olympic teams. He's worked with NFL, NBA teams, all over. He has a lot of research that it shows the CTE is not what people are pointing out to be, that there's a lot of inconclusive evidence that it's not really coming from. Right now it's the old syllogism when you learn in high school. If B follows A, it doesn't mean A caused it.
Right.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, there's hard data. I just read another article the other day. There's a doctor at Stanford. His kid was, he had a young kid at the time. He's done his research. He came out with an article recently that statistically shows that being in the band or glee club is as dangerous as playing football because all the other things that happen in the course of an adolescent's life, they're at the same level of risk of concussion and or more importantly what people are concerned, the down the road CTE.
Yeah.
Statistically, there's more concussions in soccer with headers
right.
and falling without cover to your head. Same thing with basketball, hitting the head on the floor and shit. There's equal concussions in those sports as there is in football, but people don't. And I understand that because if you're only seeing one side of the story, it's like politics.
Right.
You see one side of the story, that's the only side you know. And so people are concerned, and rightfully so, because you better look out for your kids. But that's the negative about this is people got the wrong information, and now numbers are dwindling. And it's a great sport to teach so many life lessons. I love sports. I coach track. Next year I'm going to coach wrestling also with Dave Denny. So I love sports. Every sport has its own benefits. Bob Costas talks about the drama of baseball. Okay, in football, it's a true team sport. You can't have a goalie have a great week and you win a playoff series. You can't have two pitchers get hot and win a 5-game series. You can't have a shooting guard go like Michael Jordan. I don't care how good Joe Montana is. If he didn't have Roger Craig and Jerry Rice and didn't have unsung guys up front and a defense, it doesn't matter. And so it's a true great team sport, which we need more of in our society to teach about being part of your community and not, I'm a guy that lives in my house, the heck with you. And we're losing guys because people are getting, misinformation, and that's the problem with it. But again, going back to the first part of that question, we do less hitting, and I think it's been a benefit to it in some respects, because now the kids in practice are doing less worried about impressing the coach how hard hit somebody, and with our drills, we do what we call tapping up, where there's not even collisions on some of the drills, and we're just tapping hard,
right,
which gets them in better body position where they're shooting their arms this way for a tackle as opposed to this way. So it's really helped us fundamentally in some ways, which didn't originally, how am we going to have any fundamentals if we don't hit?
Right.
In a weird way, it made us maybe more fundamental.
Interesting. So, really appreciated you taking the time. It's been a great talk so far, but I know America wants to know. You've got kind of a tradition going that you always wear shorts, and I think even that game in Goodrich a couple years ago when it was about, -5 and about a 30-mile-an-hour wind. So what is it about the shorts and Coach Nesbitt?
Well, there's a multifaceted answer to that, probably. Part of it has to do with I'm just kind of foolish person, and my wife will tell you I got fur. But it really started from early in my career and seeing kids reacting to adverse weather conditions. And so it started with the idea that, look, when a kid's going to come to me with an excuse, it's cold out, it's raining out, it's snowing out, and I'm standing there with long sleeve pants and bundled up, I can say what I want, but the reality is he's wearing pants that are come to here, and I got pants down to my ankles. So part of it came down to the idea of, if I'm going to expect it from the kids, I got to be willing to expect it from myself. That's part of it. Another part of it comes down to, and I tell this with our kids also, it's a great way to create focus in a game and in practice. And when I'm at practice and that sliding sideways rain is coming down, and I know if I start thinking about my legs are cold or my whatever else is cold, that's a good reminder to me, I got to focus on the important job right now. And so it forces me, it helps me create a habit of focus, which I want our kids to be able to feed off of. The idea of, I'm not taking excuses. I don't care if quarterback drops because the ball was wet. It's going to be wet for everybody. We can't have excuses based on the weather. And so that's probably two of the reasons we do that. I think it's to let the kids know I'm on their side. I know what they're going through because I'm going through it myself, and it forces me to concentrate on the important things on the field and not my physical health or physical discomfort, and hopefully the kids do the same. It's funny you talk about the game in Goodrich, and it really was, in that whole day, there was 2 times the entire day that I haven't felt any cold at all. Because you're in the moment.
Yeah.
Now afterwards I'm watching film and I see the crowd and all I could see was hunting gear, ski mask, and smoke coming out of their face.
I can tell you from being in the stands.
The game was kind of cold.
It was chilly in the stands.
It was cold at that point, but so if I get kids to understand that if you can focus so much you don't feel the cold, then we got an advantage on the opponent, and more importantly, number one thing is you got advantage over the little man in your head that tells you to quit. The little man that says, give me an excuse. I can't. Now all of a sudden that guy is quiet and the big man says, I gotta.
Well, there you have it. So everybody in the stands always asking about that. Now you know from Coach Nesbitt just what that means. Well, Coach, again, thanks very much for coming on. I enjoyed talking to you. Hope to see you again later in the season when we can talk about some of the successes your team will have this year.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. I'm sorry if I kept rumbling around,
Perfect.
but I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, everybody. Another day of Press Box back in the can, and we'll see you next week with another show of Press Box.